If you have ever missed someone so much that you wished you could just feel them one more time, then you have felt this too. Because sometimes our senses can play tricks on us, even when we are missing someone dearly. This is what happened to a woman in Ohio who swore she smelled her deceased husband after he had been gone for years. And while it sounds strange, scientists say that this is actually possible due to a little-known phenomenon called phantom senses. But before we get into this phenomenon, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you can be notified every time we upload a new video. Also, stick around until the end, where we will be telling another story about a similar experience. But for now, let's start at the beginning. The woman from Ohio had been married to her high school sweetheart for over 25 years. The couple had 2 children together and were enjoying their life as grandparents when her husband passed away unexpectedly. It was a devastating loss for her, and it took her quite a while to move on. However, there were times when she thought she could smell her husband's cologne on him. At first, she dismissed these feelings as simply missing him. But the more she experienced these smells, the more confused she became. She began to wonder if it was possible that he was trying to communicate with her somehow. It wasn't until she spoke to a therapist that she learned about the phenomenon of phantom senses and realized that she was not alone. According to Healthline, phantom senses are defined as perceptions that occur in the absence of any external stimuli. They can involve any of the 5 senses, including sight, smell, taste, touch, and hearing. For example, you may see something out of the corner of your eye, even though there was nothing there. Or you might smell a scent that is not really present in the environment. So how do you explain an experience like this? Well, there are a few theories. The most widely accepted theory is that phantom senses are the result of miscommunication between the brain and the body. When we perceive something with one of our senses, such as seeing something, we send signals from our sensory organs to the brain. The brain then interprets these signals and creates a meaningful representation of what we are seeing. Sometimes, however, these signals can become scrambled and the brain can interpret them incorrectly. This can happen for a variety of reasons, but it is not entirely understood. In the case of the woman who smelled her deceased husband, it is possible that her olfactory system, which is responsible for our sense of smell, was picking up on some molecules in her environment that resembled the scent of her husband's cologne. Her brain then interpreted these smells as her husband's cologne and she experienced a phantom smell. There have also been instances where people have seen their deceased loved ones. While this may seem like a clear case of a ghost sighting, there is another explanation. In some cases, people who have seen ghosts have been diagnosed with Charles Bonnet syndrome, a neurological condition that causes people to see things that aren't there. This happens due to miscommunication between the eyes and the brain. The eyes send signals to the brain that there is an object in the visual field, but the brain cannot process the information correctly, leading to the person seeing something that is not actually there. So what does all of this mean? Well, for one thing, it means that our senses are not always as reliable as we think they are. Just because we see something or smell something does not necessarily mean that it is actually there. Secondly, it means that there may be a connection between our brains and our bodies that we don't fully understand yet. Finally, it gives us hope that there may be a way to communicate with our deceased loved ones even after they are gone. One way that scientists are investigating this further is by studying people who have experienced phantom limb sensations. When a limb is amputated, sometimes the brain still perceives sensations in that missing limb. This could mean that our brains are able to retain memories of our body parts and use them to communicate with us even after they are no longer physically connected to our bodies. If this is true, then it may also be possible for us to communicate with our deceased loved ones through their sense of smell. Scientists are also studying the sense of smell in people who have lost their sense of taste. When a person loses their sense of taste, they often lose their sense of smell as well. This suggests that these 2 senses are connected in some way. Researchers are investigating whether or not it is possible to restore a person's sense of smell by stimulating their sense of taste. If they are able to do this, then it may also be possible to stimulate the sense of smell in people who have lost their loved ones. While these studies are still in their early stages, they offer hope that one day we will be able to understand the phenomenon of phantom senses better. And who knows, maybe we will even be able to use it to communicate with our deceased loved ones. Speaking of deceased loved ones, have you ever tried to reach out to yours? One woman did, and she reached out to a psychic who told her some shocking things about her deceased husband. After contacting the psychic, she said she knew things about her husband that no one else would have known, unless they were a part of the family. Her husband's name was Brad, and he died in a car accident many years ago. The woman had never spoken to anyone about his passing, but the psychic knew all the details. The psychic told her that Brad had been driving under the influence the night he died. While this was true, his blood alcohol levels weren't high enough to cause an accident. So the psychic was puzzled. Then she had a thought. Could someone else have been driving the car? The woman hadn't thought of this possibility before, but it did make sense. Brad had been drinking heavily at the time of his death, and had even been arrested for DUI. He had promised his wife that he would never drink and drive, but clearly he had broken that promise. The psychic told the woman that Brad wanted her to know the truth about what happened the night he died. He didn't want her to carry the burden of guilt or shame any longer. The woman was shocked and surprised by what the psychic had told her. She had never considered the possibility that Brad had been drinking and driving the night he died. She had always believed that he had been a victim of circumstances. After speaking with the psychic, the woman felt a sense of relief. She finally understood the truth about what happened to Brad, and she could move on with her life. She was grateful to the psychic for helping her find closure. This is a touching story that shows how our loved ones can continue to communicate with us even after they're gone. It also highlights the importance of seeking professional help when we need it. The woman in this story was able to find closure and move on with her life thanks to the help of a skilled psychic. Have you ever experienced a phantom sense? If so, share your story with us in the comments below. We would love to hear about your experience, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you for watching.